Hey, this is Steve in Dallas, Texas. It's Saturday morning, my friend, and you are listening to Light Talk.
Good morning. This is Zach coming to you from Washington, D.C. And today we're going to be discussing getting back in the saddle, how much universities pay, educating directors, and running the relay, all on Light Talk.
And this is David coming to you from the beautiful Belmont Shore neighborhood of Long Beach, California. And if you don't already know, you are listening to Light Talk, and we are the Lumen Brothers. That's right, we are. And welcome everyone to episode 280. You know, that's 280 of regular Light Talk episodes. But it is also episode 1 of Light Talk After Dark.
Whoa.
That's right. Tonight, we are taping the show after the sun has set, which brings a whole new FM Deep Cuts vibe.
Yes.
My question is, have you put on your smoking jacket and are you drinking a martini? Because that's what Zach and I are doing.
I've been thinking about getting a smoking jacket. They're very popular. And I just think the Fez is cool as hell. So,
a Fez.
Yes.
We should have Light Talk Fezes.
We should all, okay, there. Now, there you go. Ellen would go for that. That would be a
Light Talk Fez. Yeah.
Yes, that's our giveaway at LDI this year.
That's
Everyone gets a
the
Fez.
door prizes.
I like that.
Fez. Okay. And speaking of Zach, our brother Zach is here again. Boy, it's been weeks because Zach caught the horrible COVID and then got the crud cough.
Yes, it's true.
What was that like, Zach?
I mean, it was annoying, but I think that it would have been a Light Talk editor's nightmare.
Well, you better be wearing a mask, young man, because I don't want your COVID germs coming across the internet and getting me.
Yes, I'll have a smoking jacket with a matching red velvet mask.
Well, you had like a double whammy because not only did that happen, but one of your kids came back, right? From camp?
My kid came. Well, what happened? This is the chronology. My older son came home from camp with COVID, promptly gave it to me. He went back to camp when he was better. Then he got strep throat and came home again and gave that to his brother and went back to camp again. So it was a lot of driving. A lot of sickness and a lot of driving.
Oh, my God.
And during that driving, did you and your son bond and sing the Hello Mother, Hello Father camp song?
We did
Camp
not.
Granada.
I mean, I sang it to myself.
Camp is very entertaining.
They say we'll have fun when it stops raining.
Man, you got it memorized.
That was recorded by a Mr. Alan Sherman, by the way. A nice Jewish boy from the Bronx.
Yes. I had all his records when I was a kid.
That's right. There were like 2 of them.
My Son, the Folk Singer, and I can't remember what the other one was called.
An actual My Son, the Folk Singer.
That was that one had a song about the Fountainebleau Hotel and all kinds of stuff.
Oh, my.
Good stuff.
He was a Miami boy.
Yes. Well, because, all the Long Island Jews, that's where they go when they want a little sun.
Well, absolutely. I'm a Long Island Jew, and my family came down and to Miami. Went to the Fountainebleau.
Mm-hmm.
We saw Shecky Green down there. We saw Joey Ross, and I think it was like 7 years old. And I used to love to watch Car 54. Where Are You? And he was my hero. So my uncle Bert, who used to be an MC in the Catskills, he knew Joey Ross from the Catskills days. And they invited us up to his hotel room in the Fountainebleau, and I sat on his knee.
Mm.
Now, I'm not going to tell you what happened after that, but I sat on his knee.
I can tell you what happened after that. I met him.
Very funny.
I met him when I worked on New Majestic Follies and became Sugar Babies. And he left the show, and Mickey Rooney took over.
There are two basket cases right there.
Joey Ross could tell a joke, and some of them were quite blue.
Very blue.
Wow, this episode of After Dark went straight to the Borscht Belt.
Yeah, right to the bush. My uncle Bert would get drunk during Passover, and like right in the middle of the service, he would like start telling these incredibly blue jokes. I mean, unbelievable. My brother and I loved it. My mom would cry. It was horrible. Ruined the whole service. Happened every year.
What would I be? I would have been a born again evangelical Christian, and we didn't go to Miami because of you people being down there. We went to Myrtle Beach.
Myrtle Beach.
That was the working man's Miami.
Of course, of course. So anyway, listen, we have digressed way into the gutter, so let's get started. Steve has our first listener question.
Yes, and it comes from the Pacific Rim. It is Donnie from Korea, and he writes, I'm starting my grad career in a few weeks. Any advice? I've been out of school a few years. I'm 27 years old. Well, Donnie, welcome to grad school. I'm glad you're doing it. I'm going to assume that you're coming to grad school in the United States. If that is true, I would say there's a couple things about grad school, and you can take this with a grain of salt. I would treat grad school like a job, and I would start by having myself a schedule. And that schedule needs to have some study time in it and some project time and maybe some career development time. But really important, I think you should schedule some leisure time also. I think one of the mistakes in graduate school is never leaving the building, and you're just, you burn out fast if you work that way. So I think a schedule that has leisure time in it is really important. And I think, you need to stick to it. It's a job. Make friends outside the department. Go meet other graduate students. Get involved with the graduate senate. Explore the graduate life on campus. I would go to orientation. I can't believe I'm saying that, but I would go to the graduate school orientation. I would meet all the MA and MFA and MBA and PhD students, see how things work. And if you are 27, so you're at that awkward age. So I would say, there's two things about graduate school, particularly for someone your age. I think if you're here just to get a piece of paper, then you're probably wasting some time and money. You need to be in graduate school because you want to be open to new ideas and learn new things. And it's not about, your ways are bad or graduate school is better. It's if you're going to be here for 3 years, then take advantage of the courses, take advantage of the philosophies that you see around you. Experiment a little bit, try some new things, as opposed to going, well, I don't need to learn that because if I can just do this and get a piece of paper, then hello, Broadway, that's my next stop. What do you guys think? Zach, your dad was a teacher. David, you've been involved with grad students for a long time.
I think that was really, really good advice. I mean, especially the idea of the leisure time, because I know that when people get to grad school, there's this thought that you have to bust your ass intensely as quickly as you can and get through the program. One of the things that I'm wondering for our friend Donnie here is, I know that some grad school programs actually have a prerequisite that you have worked in the field for a few years before you come to grad school. And I think that could serve Donnie well if that's what he's been doing. I know we've talked before about this idea when you're an undergrad, how there's sort of my experience going to what I would call a conservatory type undergrad program, as opposed to a more liberal arts program where you don't know what you want to be when you grow up. And that I'm hoping that, that time between undergrad and grad school is where Donnie has really figured out, this is what I want to do. This is what I want to learn more about. So he's making that choice, which I think is good and bold and brave. I know for myself, there came a point where I was just I don't know if I can put myself in a school scenario anymore in my life. But I'm proud of Donnie for taking the initiative to do that for himself. And I think that it shows that, he's really figured out what he wants to learn about now. And I think that's good. And I think that it is hard when you haven't been in school to put yourself back in that mindset. But I think, Steve, you're right. That sort of think about it like it's a job. Make yourself a schedule, figure out all these things, and take advantage of the fact that you are going somewhere that has its own structure and infrastructure, and immerse yourself in that.
Oh, great comments. But I just want to point something out. You say you're 27 years old. That's not that old, really, for grad school. Most students go to grad school when they're, 23, 24? I've had grad students in their 40s and 50s. I don't think it's that big of a deal. I think what is a big deal is that you've got a lot more maturity on your peers, because a lot happens between the ages of 24 and 27. It just does. And you've got that many more years of life that you've lived. Probably some heartache and maybe you fell in love, maybe you traveled, who knows, but it's going to give you, I think, an advantage. I think older students do much better in graduate school than young students. I just think it's not for everyone to just go right into grad school, because it's totally different from undergrad school. So look at that as an advantage. Your age is an advantage.
As David was saying, it shows this level of maturity. Like, you're really, by the time you're 27, you've probably taken a good stab at living on your own.
We had a student who came in who was 30, and he was a pretty good set designer. But he was open to other things. He wanted to learn lighting. He wanted to learn costume. And this kind of thing happens, once in a lifetime. But he was a set designer, but he studied costuming also. When he graduated from college, he was a good set designer, but he was a great costume designer. And his first Broadway show was not as a set designer, but as a costume designer. And I said, what do you think about this? And he said, well, no one had ever really worked with me to develop my costume skills. And I didn't realize how much fun it was. So he's a double hitter here. He can easily come in and do scenery and costumes on a show and think nothing about it. So that's why I say, Donnie, take advantage of everything.
So Serena from Butte, Montana. I think this is our first letter from Butte. Okay, here it is. She writes, you guys have talked about fees a number of times, but have never really discussed a fee for doing a guest slot at a university. What is the average fee range? Wow. Well, something, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on who you are, what your reputation is. It depends on how much money they have, because, I've worked at several universities as a guest designer, and depending on the university, I could get anywhere between like 1/3 of my normal fee to maybe 1/2 of my normal fee, but never close to my normal fee. Now, if you're a younger designer, I think that the fees will be a lot more competitive to things you could get at a regional theater. So I think that it's going to be closer, but it depends on how much money they have in their budget. So a range, I don't know. I think the lowest amount of money I ever got at a university was $4,000, and probably the highest was maybe $6,000. I don't remember ever getting more than that. And I don't do a lot of them. I mean, I do the shows at USC because Ken Kazan runs the program there. And, we've worked together for years, and he always likes me to come in and light their operas. So I usually do at least one a season for them. But the other show, there may be 2 or 3 other universities I've worked at. So I don't have a lot of experience in that. So what do you guys know about this?
Well, I'm going to vote. It depends on your pedigree. If you're, a Broadway designer and the school really wants you there for a number of reasons, then, that can be quite lucrative for you. You'll sign a union contract, and that means your health insurance is going to be, a deposit goes toward that. Your retirement plan, a deposit goes toward that. If you're just the average person, freelancer, I think a university fee in this day and time, I'm going to say $3,500 to $5,000 a show. And you'll probably have to be on campus for a couple weeks. And of course, they're going to take care of your housing for you. But budgets are tight right now. So I think if you can find a guest gig, more power to you. But I think budgets are really tight.
One thing that we do at my university is when we bring in guests, either guest directors or guest designers, is we also give them a class so that the fee could be a lot higher. And it's a win-win situation because, first of all, we're in LA, and usually the guest lives in the Southern California area, so they can commute here. It's not like we have to put them up in a hotel or anything like that. but they get to teach, and teaching is a lot of fun when you're not doing it full time. But no, seriously, it's fun full time too. But for a lot of our guests, they love it, and the students love it. They want to hear more, different voices. Diversity is very important. So we bring in a lot of people during the year, and we usually give them a class. So that $4,000 fee may turn into like $8,000 or $9,000 because they're also teaching a class as well. So that's another way that you can earn a few more dollars. Zach, how about you?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing, that like you can come in and do, a guest slot in a show, but that giving a lecture or doing a class is another way to sort of enhance that income. But I think that, Steve, what you mentioned also is really a key thing here, that a lot of universities will give union contracts. And I know for a lot of younger designers who are in the union, but still in the early part of their career, like especially in the DC area where I live, they'll pick up a lot of these university gigs because they want to, make the minimum to keep their health insurance alive. And it's a really kind of like a hidden secret that, this is a good way to get a decent fee. And a lot of these universities are, they have their finances a lot more standardized than Lort theaters do. And you're going to get paid probably on time, and, it's going to go a lot smoother than it will if you're like trying to fight for that last $50 in order to qualify for your health insurance in the next quarter. So it's a great thing to do, and I think that it's also a really good way for you to meet the next generation. People all the time will find. I know one of the people that assisted me when I was early in my career was somebody who assisted me as a student when I worked at their school, and so there's a lot of things besides just the actual cash fee that can be beneficial for you. Robin in New Jersey writes, I have been hired to design projections for a show at a local theater, and the director has never used projections in a show before. Uh-oh. What do you think is the best way to educate her about this process? So this has been a big part of my career since day one, where, there's still, even though, I jokingly say how like David Gilmour, who's been in Pink Floyd for how many years, is still the new guy.
Since 1967.
Yeah. We've been around for a long time, but we're still the new guy in theater, and you're still going to encounter directors and designers who have not yet worked on a show with projections and may not really understand the how or the why of why there's projections or how they work. And it's an interesting challenge to kind of educate people. I think there's sometimes you work with directors who are trying to understand it more on a technical level, and they want to know more about your equipment and how all that technology is going to work. And then you have other directors who really just want to know about the images, and they have no interest in understanding the technology at all. But the first thing that I would try to do if I was working with a director who has never used projections before is really try to help them to understand what our intention is on this project. So are we there because the script is calling for some kind of specific imagery? Are we there because there's a desire to transform the sceneries in some way? Are we there because there's a need for virtual backdrops that couldn't be built physically? I think really the first thing is to sort of figure out your purpose, and then, very gently and intentionally walk the director through what your goal is and how you plan to achieve that goal. You don't need to weigh them down with, all the technical know-how of lumens and Ethernet cables and stuff like that. But I think it's important for them to understand, and you may need to do a little extra demonstration, whether it's projecting on a model or making some additional storyboards to show this is how projections will transform what you see, and this is what it's going to look like. I think that with a director who's seasoned, they kind of get what it's going to be already. So you can say, I'm going to put a picture up on top of that and it'll be cool, and they'll be down with that. But for a director who's not done this before, you may have to do a little extra work, some extra hand holding just to show them and to get them to trust that what you say can really happen. Because, even seasoned directors still think there's a little bit of black magic involved in the world of projections. And maybe there is. I mean, what do you guys think?
We like to keep it that way.
Yes. There is a little bit of pay no attention to the man behind the curtain in there.
Yeah. It's interesting, Zach, because it sort of reminds me when Moving Lights first came out and directors, they'd never worked with them before. And you do the same things that you just described. You describe, the possibilities and show them a bit. But I found myself pretty much trying to hold the damn directors back from overusing the lights. It sort of reminds me when you're doing a show and there's a problem on stage, and then they immediately turn to you as the projection designer, say, "Oh, well, video can solve this problem, right?"
Yes.
Well, not necessarily. Maybe it's just exiting upright instead of down left, and then that way the truck will clear. And they see it. Not all of them, obviously. The real, smart ones. Thank God we work with real smart directors. They don't see it as a crutch, the real smart ones. But people think immediately, "Oh, we'll solve it with video, or we'll solve it with the moving light," and it's and I think unfortunately video is even more tempting to solve it with because everyone thinks they're an expert in video. Something I always said is that the one job I would hate in the theater, besides stage managing, by the way, which I think is the hardest job in the theater, but second to stage managing would be the sound designer, because everyone thinks they're an expert in sound. Everybody thinks they're an expert in sound. Well, I think now that's turned into projections also, because everybody watches TV. Well, it's just like TV. Right. I watch Mork and Mindy on TV. Well, Mork and Mindy, but that's really that's really aging me. I watch Breaking Bad. Oh, wait, that's aging me too. I watch Marvelous Miss Maisel. Mrs. Maisel, Mrs. Maisel. I watch her, and this is what they did in Mrs. Maisel. It's like no. You got to think out of the box, and instead of being so damn literal. You can't solve everything with projections, and you can't solve everything with lighting. And you can't, if you have a bad script, forget it. The design ain't going to help you. But if it's a transition, then maybe it's time for the projection designer to say, well, something, why don't we try this? Instead of doing it in projections, we do it with sound and lighting or something like that. Or we do it with the different blocking.
It's interesting that you bring up sound in particular, because I often feel like on lots of projects, even outside of the theater, that projects that involve sound, that we rarely think about how the sound design is going to impact things. Like I'm working on a project right now that's an attraction basically for a charitable organization. And we've created these super amazing storyboards that show all kinds of magical media and lighting and this and that. And they're taking these things out to help to raise money to build this thing. And there's no indication of sound at all in the storyboards, because how would you indicate that? But the reality is that, for every magical pixie dust moment, there's probably going to be some kind of directional sound effect that goes with it. And we often, before that moment where we get into tech and we can actually hear the sound in the space, I think that we often rely too much on the physical production because that's all we have to work with at that point.
I want to get back to this Mork and Mindy stuff. I just want to say that episode 23, it's a wonderful Mork. That's the episode right there.
Robin Williams' greatest triumph right there.
Are you streaming this stuff, or do you have the complete collection on DVD? Episode 23.
I'm streaming it. Yeah, I got it, man. I watched it the other night.
Yeah. You're aware that that's a rerun, right?
Oh, really? Well, yeah, because Robin Williams is no longer with us. It must be.
Yes. Well, they're all new to David.
And Jonathan
everything. My dad. I used to watch my dad all the time. He used to watch MASH every single day. This is back when they would run like 5 episodes of MASH back to back, right? And he'd laugh and laugh and laugh. And I would say, Dad, you've seen this. He goes, I know, but I forget them, because he was at the time in his 70s. He goes, so it's like watching it new again. Well, I must say, I'm experiencing that now. So when I watch an old Seinfeld, I'm laughing, right? I said, I forgot about this line. This is funny, I just watched it the other night. That's the problem. Okay, so there you go.
All right. You are listening to Light Talk, and today Light Talk is sponsored by...
Are you tired of moving lights that fail? Maybe it's a broken belt or a stripped gear or dead motor. Who knows? The bottom line is it's not working, and for $9,000, common sense tells you it should be working. Enter the TL Electric Company of West Virginia, the same good men and women who brought you the Juice Hose Jr. and the Never Trip Breaker. All new for 2022, we offer the Tornado, the world's first static moving light. You heard me right. Never be held hostage to technology again. Just hang, point, and forget. No fancy iris, no out-of-whack zoom, and no color mixing to fail. Just hang, point, and shoot. It's always on its mark. And if you want color, just add our patented plastic color filters to the accessory holder found at the front of the light.
What an idea.
But wait, you say I need zoom. Well, brother, just hang the Tornado a little closer to the stage. But what about iris? I need iris. Real designers don't need iris. The Tornado works with all consoles and dimmers, and best of all, the Tornado is made in the mountains of West Virginia by Americans who use parts sourced at Home Depot, the dollar store, and True Value. The Tornado is only $199.95. Common sense tells you it's going to break, but so what? At that price, buy a dozen. Stop at our booth at LDI and say howdy.
Originally made by Altman. Okay.
And now, back to Light Talk.
Well, the sound of those rabid monkeys prancing about and fornicating in the studio tells us that once again it's time for Let's Talk About. And today's
Are we going
Let's
to talk about the monkeys?
What they're fornicating in the studio.
It's after dark.
It's after dark. This is Light Talk After Dark. You can fornicate in the studio, okay? So
somewhere Stan right now is grabbing his chest. He's grabbing his heart right now somewhere in Gainesville.
Stan does not listen to the shows. When he's not on it, he doesn't listen to the shows. So don't worry about Stan. So anyway, let's get back to... So today's Let's Talk About is all about... Well, it's about a question that came from one of my students, which I thought was perfect for today's show, since we have Zach on the show, and who's our resident projection expert, of course, video expert. And here was his question. If you had to choose from the following qualities in a projector or a light to be excellent and the others to be fair, which would you choose? Intensity, color, fan noise, contrast, or lamp stability? Now, let's clear this, because I don't think I actually phrased this correctly. You could only have one of these qualities to be excellent, and all the others would be only fair or good. And which one would you want to be excellent? Would it be intensity, color, fan noise, contrast, or lamp stability? And I'm going to kick this right off to Zach Bovray. Go for it, brother.
This is really the Sophie's choice of projections.
Sophie's.
It's interesting. But my initial thought is that of all those parameters that you've just laid out, intensity is probably the one that there's no way to kind of quote unquote fix and post. I can't make something brighter. I can build a box to make it quieter. I can manipulate the imagery to enhance the color and the contrast. But, and if I have to change the lamp, I can change the lamp. But I can't make anything brighter than it can be. So I might go with intensity. It's sort of like you can have, the good, fast, cheap, you can have two.
Right.
So I might go with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. When I was a private pilot, they used to say, you can't have too long of a runway. Right?
Is that what they said in Colombia when you were taking off?
Yes, as a matter of fact, that's what they said in Colombia. You can't have too long of a runway, and you can't have too high of an altitude. If something should go wrong, it's much better to be at 10,000 feet than at 2,000 feet. So my flight instructors always said, go as high as you can and as fast as you can. I said, okay, that's good. All right. So I kind of agree with Zach on this one. Intensity, I don't know. I mean, what are you going to do? Tell the lighting designer to bring down all the levels? I guess so.
I mean, it's interesting because all these things impact the other departments in a way too that can be very challenging. So if your colors are all over the place, it can make it really challenging to balance with lighting. If your projector is super noisy, it can really harm the sound design of the show. But as I said, I feel like the one thing that, you can always turn it down, but you can't turn it up past, you can go to 11, I guess.
Yeah, you could go to 11.
Yeah.
These go to 11.
But you can't make it brighter than its maximum.
Or you could put extra voltage in it, I guess. And that will, maybe not. It depends on what your lamp source is. What's your lamp source in these? That's the next question.
Right.
HMIs, these LEDs, are they laser?
Well, they're probably laser at this point now.
We look at moving lights, and we apply the same question to a moving light. You can have a super powerful moving light, but if the fan noise is too loud, you can't build a box over a moving light. Yes, you can over a projector, but you can't do it over a moving light. So if you're applying moving lights to this, then it would probably be noise. What do you think, Steve?
It's a good question. I think, I want something bright. I want something that can get the job done. And if I'm having to dim it, I've selected the wrong light, I guess. So I've bounced back and forth on this between intensity and fan noise, because there's nothing more difficult for a director to sit there and hear this kind of fan noise that we used to say, well, it's the AC and the heating system making that noise, but now it's us. So they're sitting there going, well, can we turn the lights off? What are we going to do? I can't. That's unacceptable.
Turn them off.
So so from a director's point of view, having the sound controlled in a theater is terribly important. Maybe in lighting, maybe I need to start thinking more and more about fan noise.
I would say,
less
though,
about intensity.
If you're talking about a moving light, there's an additional parameter that might be the make it or break it of all, which is positional and directional accuracy. That if you have a moving light that's not going to the same place every time, then the rest of it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
People don't appreciate what it takes for, I don't know, pick any major manufacturer, but we'll pick Clay Packy. People don't appreciate how much weight is being moved when those moving heads move, and for that light to stop and not shake back and forth and wobble. Accuracy, you're right, is terribly important, and control of that light. I'm throwing 30 pounds of light around, and I'm not, tearing through the braking system to get it to stop.
Yeah, but I must say that over the past 15 years, from the major manufacturers, they've kind of solved that.
Well, what I'm suggesting is buy from those major manufacturers.
Right, absolutely. You don't want to
get cheap out and get this light that you've just,
if it comes within 10 feet, you're okay.
Common sense tells you there's a difference between a $9,000 Clay Packy and a $900 illegitimate Panda light.
Hey, one of our sponsors, don't knock it.
That particular aspect of the technology, we still have not really been able to bring over to projectors. There have been several attempts. There was one that was a huge fail, and it got to the point where they jokingly had fast mode and accurate mode, and you could have one or the other. But they have not been able to figure out how to take a bright image and move it around on a yoke. We're still not there.
That makes no sense because some of the moving lights are brighter than projectors, and they move around on a yoke accurately.
Yeah. Part of it, I think, is they just sort of figured, well, we'll just make super wide lenses instead so that your raster will cover a huge area, and then you just place your image where you want inside that.
Yeah, and then it's bleeding off of the panel.
But I'm telling you, this was on the Broadway production of Shrek, where I think it was Barco maybe tried to develop this moving head projector, and it was such a nightmare that I think it scared people away almost permanently from trying to do yokes with projectors.
Well, it's hard to recover from that disaster if you're the projection designer.
Yeah. Yeah, I know the company, the shop, when the show closed, they sent it all back and they're like, we don't want these anymore.
Oh. Wow, that's pretty intense. Yeah, so it's funny because we used to talk about contrast a lot, and how important contrast is. And of course, color accuracy. But as Zach said, you can get close with those. But boy, if it's not bright enough, unless the lightness, and I've done this before on shows. I've worked with projection designers who didn't get the projectors they wanted, and it was going to be a lot weaker. So I adjusted the lighting, and they didn't even have to ask me to do it because I realized immediately that the lights would basically drown it out. So I was able to do that. And sometimes you have to do that. And that's okay. That's okay. Because look, back in like the 1950s on Broadway, the lights were not nearly as bright as they are now. Maybe they're half as bright, if that. And people saw fine. You don't need 250 lumens in every square inch of that theater for people to see. You don't need it. But, the zeitgeist has changed. People, like, bright colors and,
audiences are sort of expecting something
crazy
different now.
cues and, and super bright lights, but it doesn't have to be that way.
Well, you can remember when production art, how many LECOs did they have? 30,000 maybe? Back in the day, they had to go from 750s to 1Ks. And, their argument was, you don't really need a 1K lamp. You've been working happily with a 750, but designers said, no, I've got to have a 1K lamp.
Well, that's the thing, because designers want more and more power. I'm a power nut. I love power, okay? But then there's a point where you have to, look at the other considerations. And, 750-watt lamps, the old, what were they called? The FEL was the 1,000-watt lamp. I'm trying to remember the name of the 750s. Because I started out with 500s. That's how old I am. When I was in college, we had 500-watt lamps. Then we went to 750s, and then we went to FELs, and then we had the axial mount fixtures, and they were much more efficient. And then, as we all know, ETC came out with the Source 4, and that was using a 575-watt lamp. And of course, we were all saying, we're stupid Americans, more is better, so how could a 575-watt lamp be more powerful than a 750-watt lamp? Well, it is. Because it's more efficient. The reflector is more efficient. You get more light out of the reflector with better lenses instead of those green lenses that Altman made. You're gonna get much better light out and much more efficient light, and it's going to be brighter. It's certainly going to look brighter. I'll tell you that right now.
Right.
So,
but you have to think like Spider-Man, though, because with great power comes great responsibility. It's true, though.
Said the projection designer.
You got to really think about what you're going to do with it.
I love it when Zach's on the show because we've got all these great references. Spider-Man. We talked about Mork and Mindy today, and it's great stuff. It's good stuff. I love it. Yeah, I agree. With power comes responsibility.
I was going to say, before Zach says things, he should grab one of those bass guitars behind him, and we have a Zach theme. He just hits a couple chords, and we know Zach is coming in.
Wow. Look at all that stuff. I'm just noticing Zach's wall. He's got Rock of Ages up there. He's got Elf, right? He's got a Catered Affair.
Yeah.
That's your Tony Award, right? The Catered Affair? Was that the one you got the Tony for?
No.
Oh, okay.
No Tony
Drama Desk, right? No, you didn't get the drama. I thought
that one had a Drama Desk nomination, yeah.
And what's the one behind you, right behind you?
That is No Man's Land and Waiting for Godot with Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen.
Oh, Hacks. Total hacks.
Yes.
Those
totally.
those two. Terrible, terrible actors. Oh, my God. That must have been thrilling. Yeah. Okay. You got, what, 2 bases amazing. Back there? You got 2 bases, yeah. I see. Very nice.
2
very
bases.
Nice. And a hat with a rainbow on it. I like that, too.
Yep.
That's good. All right. Well, we'll cut that out. Great. Well, Steve has the last question of Light Talk After Dark.
And it's Gene. Gene in Oregon, right?
Well, wait a sec. This is the latest question, so this could be a blue question. If we ever got a risque crest question, we could actually run it now because most of our listeners are in bed now. Most of them have been asleep for a while, but a lot of them are in bed. So go ahead. What did Gene say?
Well, Gene doesn't care. She's just got a problem. She wants an answer. So Gene in Oregon writes, we're moving more and more to LEDs in our theater. Do I really need relays? Why not just park the dimmer on and use the breaker as an on-off switch? Okay, I'll keep this short and to the point. Movers and LEDs typically don't like the regulated sine wave provided by regular dimmers. Even when you set it, as you suggest, in, quote, the relay mode. They will work. So you're right, it's going to work. Relays are similar to a lighting dimmer, except a relay turns on and off circuits of power, and it can't dim them. So the reason you want to use a relay instead of a dimmer for turning on and off equipment is that the dimmer on at full does not give the same clean power source that the relay gives. And that dimmer parked on at full can damage your equipment. Even if you set the dimmer to non-dim, it's just not good. The power it sends out at full is not clean or safe for your gear. So in summary, LED relay power is not the same as dimmer power. You don't want power going to the LED 24 hours a day. Stan talked about that a few months ago. There's always power going to it, and it is leaking. So 24 hours, 7 days a week, that's not good for your LED fixture. Personally, I don't want to walk into the dimmer room every day and turn the breakers on and off. And, people will tell you, people who really know what they're talking about will tell you dimmers are not meant to be on-off switches. So I think there's a number of reasons that you're heading in the wrong direction. And actually, I understand not all dimmer racks can be retrofitted with a relay module, but I think if you're adding more and more LEDs into your theater, maybe it's time to consider an upgrade to your dimmer racks also. It's not going to be that much more money. And in the long run, I think you'll be happier.
Well, I don't know anything about relays. So, I am not an expert in this. I know the 100-meter relay. I know that one. Or is that the 400-meter relay?
Is there a 100-meter relay? I don't think so.
No, that's too short. That would be real quick. Every 20 meters, have a relay handoff.
I mean, I just know that there's a lot of equipment where I feel like using the breaker as the on and off switch is going to make it not happy. Like that's not, there maybe with these lighting fixtures, it's okay. But with lots of other stuff, that's not the proper way to power down a piece of equipment, especially if it's something that has a fan that needs to run a fan cycle when it's shutting down, because when you flip the breaker, you're killing the power.
Well, you clearly would buy a never trip breaker.
That's true. Yeah, you don't need just put a big piece of tin foil in the old fuse box and you're fine. And also, if you're using discharge lamps, again, this is the bleeding obvious, so please excuse me if you already know this, because most of you probably do already, but it's really important. If you're using a discharge lamp, always power it down properly, because as Zach said, the lamp gets powered off and then the fans run for about, 5 minutes, maybe 10 minutes. If you are not going to turn off the lamps because let's say you're only gone for 1 hour, you're doing a dinner break, then I've seen a lot of programmers just point the lights straight down and make sure that the dowsers are open. Don't close the dowsers or else it's going to build up heat. You want as much air flowing through that thing as possible. Because, if you turn on and off a discharge lamp, you basically lose several hours of life on that lamp every time you do that. So sometimes it just makes a lot more sense to just keep the lamp on.
I'm sure there are volumes on this subject written at the ETC website. I bet they have so much good information on breaker versus relay, dimmer versus relay, and can really explain it in a very elegant way. It just doesn't make sense to invest in the equipment and then not follow the manufacturer's recommendations for it.
Read the manual. Don't do what we do. Don't just throw the manual out and just turn it on. It never works. Never works. Well, the rocking sounds of the Luminoids tells us that once again you spent another morning listening to Light Talk. You can hear our show on just about every podcast site out there. Check out our website on lighttalk.org and be sure to follow us on Facebook. And make sure you subscribe to our podcast. That way you will not miss a second of Light Talk insanity.
No guarantee is offered regarding the accuracy of any statements or opinions made on this podcast. However,
if you do decide to litigate, the law firm of Flecht, Flocht, Flair, and Glare and their paralegal Snoot will defend us until our retirement funds are depleted.
Hey, if you want to join us and ask us a question live on the show, then just send an email to our brother Stan K. His address is stankaye@icloud.com, and he will give you all the information.
Light Talk is written and produced by the Lumen Brothers, coming to you from Long Beach, Washington, D.C., and the Lone Star State.
And be sure to join us next week when we talk about more lighting shenanigans and serve you more of our casserole of nonsense.
Light Talk After Dark, broadcasting questionable and slightly blue Lumen knowledge and humor around the world.
So we'll see you all next Saturday morning. Bye-bye from Light Talk After Dark.
I like it.